Am I recording? Is there sound? Okay. Hey! So, this is day 4. I swear to God, I was like, I'm not gonna do this today. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. It is a good, gazillion hours after I usually do these videos. This reflection on my glasses is pretty bad. But my eyes look weird without glasses. Oh well. I was like, I just don't feel like it today. And then I was like, sit down, dumbass, and just talk. Even if it's only for 5 minutes. Because at some point here, I'm going to figure out what I want to do with my YouTube channel. And I'm going to have interesting things to say. I don't have interesting things to say today. I mean, what did I do yesterday? I took a nice long walk. And I managed to get a really good flare-up of my sciatica. I've had sciatica for a decade now, and it kind of comes and goes in how much it hurts. But it woke me up last night. It wouldn't let me sleep. Normally I don't sleep because I'm on too much nicotine or caffeine or whatever. And so this is at least a different reason for me to not sleep. But by the time I rolled my broken body out of bed and went downstairs, my kids were both awake and my partner wasn't. So I've been awake forever and I'm so tired. Anyway, so yesterday I didn't work on my romance novel. It's like this is the top of my priority list right now. My romance novel is I'm calling it You've Got Nudes, which is the millennial update to You've Got Mail, where instead of the two of them emailing over AOL, they meet on a Tinder analog, which I call Hunger, and then they start Snapchatting, and at the same time she owns this tiny little socialist. Well, she doesn't own it, but she helps run this tiny little socialist commune where everybody lives in tiny houses, and he opens what is basically a Whole Foods chain right next to their co-op where the community gets their produce and stuff, and his presence threatens them to shut down, but at the same time they're kind of falling in love on Snapchat and swapping nudes. It's so much fun, but I didn't work on that yesterday. I don't know if I'm going to work at all today. I have to have a doctor's appointment, and I get so anxious about appointments at all, much less ones where I know I'm going to have to strip down and have an ultrasound probe jammed up my cooter, because my hormones are up to the craziest thing. I don't know what, but they're going to go take a look at my ovaries and see what's going on there. I am worried about the results, but I'm kind of too tired to be properly worried about the results. I definitely need to nap before the doctor starts shoving things up my gynae. What I did work on yesterday was my high fantasy novel. And I'm having a heck of a time trying to figure out how I want my high fantasy novel to sound and what specific angles I want to take it from. It's not just a question of narrator and POV, but this book I want it to feel special to me. I want to indulge my artistic whims. And I kind of have this sense, this undefinable sense of what I want the book to be like. The closest thing that I can say is that if I really could just nail it down, I would want this book to be if Jeannie Lin's Under a Pendulum Sun was written in the style of House of Leaves, Under a Pendulum Sun as an experimental horror novel. But this is really Lord of the Rings done like Crimson Peak. It's a gothic romance. It's gothic horror. But it's epic fantasy too. It's all elves and Dwaro. So I can't quite figure out the sound of it. I can't find the vibe of it. And so I have this really clear picture of all the events that need to happen. I know pretty much every event, more or less, that happens in this one book that I want to write. At least for, like, the first half of it. I'm actually still also not sure how many events I want to put in the first book and to what extent I want to serialize the story. I started writing this book sort of like a Descent verse book with that sort of comfortable third-person perspective, with that, I really don't know how to put into words the voice and tone choices that I'm making. There can be, in the Descent verse, dips into purple prose, but it's a fairly functional writing style established over a great many books, and I have a really distinctive template in my head for how the Descent verse books work. Usually the first scene, first chapter is not in the perspective, for my third person POV books, it's not in the perspective of the main character, but someone looking at them from outside. And so you kind of get this sense, especially with, I have a demon hunter, Elise, she, you get the sense of what a legend she was by coming into it like that. So you see her arrive and do something. And there was definitely a non-linearity to these stories that really a lot of readers struggled with. And I want to still do non-linearity in my high fantasy novels, but I'm kind of torn between trying to make that non-linearity more accessible than Descent verse, but also saying I don't give it two hoots how accessible this book is, because I want the people who get through it to have, like, this immense, epic, emotional experience. Sort of like the Elise's, in my Descent series, I have a character, the Godslayer, and it's established through the course of the books in this sort of non-linear way that she was made to kill God, and so it goes through what happens to her on her journey to killing God and what happens to her afterward. And so I would do present day, like, cases that she was working on in parallel with past cases that provided supplementary information. And a lot of readers really didn't like that. I don't especially care because I liked it. But this is going to be different because I'm not telling one story. In epic fantasy, you're a lot likelier to get I'm reaching around to different parts of the world to have events that will converge happening. Even though they're happening at different times, I'm sort of depicting them parallel. It's really complicated. So I've written the early scenes of this book, it must be 5 times now. I've written probably over 50,000 words of actual fiction on this book and discarding it because I can't find what I'm trying to do. Some part of me says I should just accept that I don't have the skill yet, or maybe that the emotional vision that I have for this book isn't practically executable. And I tell myself I should just push through and just write the story. I mean, you don't need to have this sort of dense artistic prose to affect emotional states on people. Sometimes that can make it more inaccessible. But I just want this story, I want reading it to feel like being intoxicated by a history of this world you've never been in, and the passion that grows between these opposing forces, and the wars, the very, very personal, I can't say human factors, because it's mostly elves and Dwaro. There are men in the world, like men, race of men, capital M. But it's not about them, it's about the elves and Dwaro. So I can't say the human element, but effectively that's what it is. It's like, I really want the human element that propels these nations to go to this, like, huge war that at its crux is ultimately this... I'm still in the stage of this book where I am an artist scribbling on the walls in marker, trying to figure out, like this book's gonna be brilliant. So I worked on that yesterday, and it's simply not consumable yet for anybody. I have so many notes, I have so many versions of these files. Here's a paragraph of what I wrote yesterday, and I don't know if this is garbage or not. Mishineki Mikteshvis was, by every standard of Eduardo's quality, the perfect example of his breed. By the time he was fully grown, the top of his head reached the shoulders of his father's ibex mount. Mission's shoulders had the heft of the mountains, his eyes wide enough to penetrate the deepest darkness, his mouth concealed by a fringe of his growing facial hair. He was nearly furred by the time he notified the burrow that he planned to begin his borehole. Glorious russet hair burgeoned from arms thick enough to crush a cave salamander's larynx, something it was said Mission had once done in order to save a schoolmate on a trip into the mines. There were few criticisms of Ursholan Burrow's fastest rising citizen. As a child, he had been as sturdy as silent, raising his voice only on behalf of others. In adolescence, he committed himself... See, this is like reading more like character notes almost. What am I trying to do here? I know it's there. I know I'm going to find this. Mission would not be deterred. Rite of passage. I'm going to figure this out. When I figure this out, this book is going to be badass. But that day isn't today. So I'm going to set this aside for now. And I'm going to... I don't know if I'm going to write a darn word today, honestly. Oh, wow. Can you tell I just dyed my hair? I use Splats. It's Splat brand, and it's the stuff that you don't need to bleach your hair, and it just dyes my skin forever. Anyway, I don't know if I'm gonna write today because I have to go have a doctor shove crap up my vagina, and I'm not thrilled about that, so I'm probably just gonna nap and then go to the doctor. Hello, welcome to Sarah's channel. Here's what is up with my vagina today. But I'll be back tomorrow, and I'll let you know. I hope you guys are having a good week. That's day 4 for you. Bye!